Are you ready to make 2017 the year you transform your life?
You can wait for something to happen, or you're actually going to decide to go home after this weekend to do something about that. We all know that we have a very, very limited amount of time on this earth. So let's not have repeated years. Live your own life. Make the choice, make the decision for your own life. Fear is where you develop courage. There's a moment going, holy crap, all right, I'm going to do this now.
The Wellness Breakthrough is coming.
And so you actually have that choice every single morning, every single day, every single moment to decide whether you're going to live it to the fullest or not.
Join myself, Marcus Pearce, and the Wellness Guys, Damien Christoph, Lawrence Tam, and Brett Hill for 2 nights and 3 days of transformation at the Country Place. 10 acres of breathtaking rainforest in the Dandenong Ranges of Victoria, February 17 to 19.
It's each and every single one of you are going to support each other in your journey, whatever that journey is.
Couples discounts available, limited spots remaining. For all information and to watch the spine-chilling video, go to thewellnessbreakthrough.com.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cyndi O'Meara, Carren Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Carren Smith.
And I'm Cyndi O'Meara.
And our beautiful little Kimmy, well, she's just got herself so flat out today that she just wasn't available to be a part of today's podcast. But we are definitely going to have her back on next week. Poor thing, given that it's the end of the year, beginning of the year, it's just flat out for her. Absolutely huge. Everybody's buying her oils. It's going nuts in her office. And I reckon, let me just say this about that. I reckon if you haven't jumped onto Kim's or Cyndi's website and gotten yourself set up for the end of the year and the beginning of 2017, then you just haven't had enough time. So why don't you make a note for yourself and to jump onto the 2 websites and go and get yourselves ready for the new year? Because Kim and Cyndi, I know you do too, Cyndi, because I was at your shop the other day. Both of you girls are completely stocked up with everything that is all things Christmas and all things New Year. So it's really, really beautiful to go in and see how much, you know, you guys are prepared for all of our gorgeous listeners to be able to start their years off the way that they intend to continue. So all those New Year's resolutions and health and well-being, it's a place to start.
Yeah, and if I can recommend, we've just put a cookbook out, and it's beautiful. It's brand new, and it's a colour picture on one side, and then what the recipe is. It's just I'm so proud of it, and it looks magnificent. So for Christmas presents, that's a no-brainer. That's a really easy one, and you could add a few ingredients too. You could do it like a basket and put the salt and the rapadura sugar and our cinnamon and our turmeric. There's so many things that you can add to it to make it a beautiful, healthy gift. But for the ones that want to start a New Year's resolution, there's the 4-phase fat elimination protocol. We've had women and men, our biggest weight loss so far is 70 kilos.
Wow.
And it took her a year and a bit to do it. And she says, I have learned more lessons in this year about what food works for me and what doesn't. My body craves different things now. She says, I can't believe for 20 years I just was not doing what I should have been doing. So, I'm proud of that protocol. I think it's on a brilliant platform. It helps people stick to it. We've got great coaches. So for anybody who's looking for a New Year's resolution and wanting to do it, I'd do it as a group. Load. Remember, there's phase 4. So the first 2 days of is loading lots and lots of food and fats and eat as much as you can. I would load the day before New Year and New Year's Day. Like crazy. And then start the 2nd of January, or load the 2 days before, 30th and 31st, and then if you wanted to start on New Year's Day, start the 1st. But that would be my thing. They're going to be the easiest days to load. Have fun.
Yeah, I reckon that's absolutely spot on. Like, if you're going to do it, there's no better time.
No, there's not. And then there's all those beautiful oils and Kim's got so many beautiful oils. And I guess that really leads us, don't you think, Carren, to our guest today.
Totally.
She's known as the kitchen coach. And, do you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I first met our little kitchen coach earlier this year, the beautiful Ashley Jubinville. I met Ashley when Kim and I did our amazing retreat in Noosa called The Essential Miracle. And it was a beautiful combination of Kimmy's, oils and her background of oils. And then I did a whole workshop on the Course in Miracles, Eastern philosophy and yogic philosophy. And it was all really about, creating new mindsets and new patterns and habits. And Kimmy, she introduced us to Ashley, and Ashley came and took our yoga class, which was, I have to say, one of the most beautiful yoga classes I think I've ever done at a retreat. But what was very clear at that event was that Ashley was launching into a whole new level of life with her new business here on the Sunshine Coast as the kitchen coach. So we thought it would be a perfect opportunity to get somebody like Ashley on the show to talk about what it actually means to coach people through that whole big transition into whole foods and health and well-being, and to do it from the angle that, as she's come from, being somebody who's been very aware of the body and the philosophy of the body. So welcome to the show, Ashley. What a treat to have you as part of our family.
Thank you, Carren. Thank you very much. Hello, Cyndi. Yes, it's very much a pleasure to be invited onto the show. Thank you so much. And it is perfect.
It is. So tell us about you, your background. Give us a bit of insight into you before we get stuck into all of the details of what you do.
Excellent. Yes. So, originally from Canada, that would be the accent, but so happy to call the Sunshine Coast of Australia home now. My goodness. As a matter of fact, that's probably the first part of the story, is the incredible, I guess you could call it a revelation that I had when I moved to the Sunshine Coast. Just the fact that you can grow food all year round here just blows my mind. Not to mention the fact that you can grow mangoes in the same area that you can grow apples. Like that is so unique and so special. And so, yes, when I moved from Canada to the Sunshine Coast, the first thing I basically wanted to do when I started hearing and observing people and how it didn't seem like anyone was aware of that privilege or that special feature that they were surrounded by, was I literally wanted to smack people in the face and be like, are you completely oblivious to the fact that you are so lucky to eat such healthy food here? So that's kind of how the whole thing has been inspired, is that since I was a little girl, it's always been about food for me. And I guess, again, you don't really realize when you do grow up how lucky you are. So I just thought everybody, had a father that would grow a huge vegetable garden, every single summer, the precious 4 months that we could have fresh veggies in Canada. And I guess I just thought it was normal that everyone's mother made meals for them, 3 meals a day. And so I kind of grew up with that, I guess, very fortunate upbringing. And food has always been my passion as a result of that. So running alongside that, then, you get told to go and get a real job. So I did that whole experience and became a structural engineer. And
oh my God, really?
Yes. So it all stemmed from that. And I look back on that experience. I worked in it for a few years and realized pretty quickly that it wasn't going to help me change the world like I wanted to do. So very quickly, I kind of got out of that and tried to figure out exactly how it was that I was going to make this change. And the really, really beautiful thing, look, it did take a few years to kind of find that space, but it all just sort of happened fairly organically, in that I ended up organizing my friends' pantries and kitchens just because I thought it would really help them out when I saw what state they were in. Or, for a while there, I worked as a chef for a family of 4 kids, of cooking for 6. And through a couple of their friends, I was asked to come and just help them get organized in the kitchen, because I guess they saw that I had a particular way of doing things, and they saw the improvements in the family that I was working for. And next thing you know, it kind of evolved into this thing which we couldn't call anything other than kitchen coaching. And I think the real magic in that is the fact that I don't see myself as doing anything different than I was for engineering in a way. And what I mean by that is, being trained as an engineer, basically you're being trained to be a master problem solver. And in that process, you learn extreme organization skills and how to make every single process, every single thing in front of you, how to make it more efficient, how to make it run better. So when I applied that to everything that has been my passion since I was little, which is food and health, and how can we use food to be wonderfully healthy, when I brought those 2 things together, that's when the magic started to happen. And then that's how I've found that I've been able to help people in a way that I feel is gonna have a significant impact that I'm happy with. So that's pretty much my story of how I got to kitchen coaching.
That's amazing. It's so so unusual though to go through engineering to get to that. That blows me away, really. It's almost like me going from accounting to get to spirituality. There you go.
It's really that. But it's honestly, it's really cool to see, the thing that I see most when I get in front of audiences and start speaking to people, or go into their homes and have these one-on-one chats to get them unstuck. The thing that I'm seeing the most is the fact that people are just extremely overwhelmed nowadays. They just don't know exactly where to make their body healthy, how to do it in such a way that they can fit into their daily schedule. And there's just this sense of general overwhelm. So from an organization perspective and getting people to be more efficient, that's, I guess, really been where the magic, like I said, it has been happening for people, so that they can still be cooking wholesome meals, but spending any more time in the kitchen. They're just doing it much more, I guess, smarter, not harder.
And I think, Ashley, a lot of people want to be shown. They can read it and become overwhelmed. But if you go in there and you are picking through their pantry and you're discussing things with them about the pantry and what the ingredients are, and then showing them how to recreate a new pantry and where are the shops that you go to and where are the places that you go to here is the basics of cooking, because many of the generation that are coming through now, like you're different because your mum cooked and my mum cooked. But there are kids in my kids' generation who are in their 20s whose mother didn't cook, and they did packaged foods and things like that. So we almost have to go back to scratch with these people, and it's a step-by-step, bit-by-bit thing that we have to do with them, I think. And I think the most valuable place is in the kitchen. And being the kitchen coach, I loved when I saw you created the kitchen coach. I thought, what a perfect name, because you're back in the kitchen making beautiful foods from scratch, healing or feeding your family and healing a nation. So it's and organization is the key to doing this. So, I think what you're doing is brilliant.
And it's a good point. One thing I like to ask people is, have you ever met anyone who is actually better off when they're completely disorganized? Like, as in, it just doesn't make sense, right? Everyone benefits from organization, whether it's, organizing your finances, to organizing your time schedule, to organizing your pantry. I mean, it all comes back to peace of mind by being organized. So, yeah, it's interesting.
So what is your overall philosophy? It's one of the things that I love that Cyndi always encourages everybody to have is a philosophy. And then, you can try different things inside of that philosophy. What's the philosophy that you hold that you then go ahead and teach the people that you work with?
That's a very good question. And look, I probably would put it back towards It's a famous quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, which is, "The first wealth is health." And honestly, if especially in the world that we are in and amongst today, with the bombardment from media, the abundance of so-called convenience foods being thrown at us left, right, and center, the pressures of our schedules, everything like that is pushing us in the exact opposite direction of where I think we need to go, which is learning core skills to be able to prepare a meal for yourself and your family in literally no time flat. And so from that, the first wealth being health, for me, it's that we have to get back to the kitchen if we want to get back to health. And from that perspective, I mean, not only just about the actual food we're putting in our bodies, but how we physically do that to make it enjoyable, to make it fun. So definitely it would be that health begins in the kitchen. And if you take that a little bit further, I would say health begins in the pantry. So yes, that would be, I guess, the underlying philosophy for everything that I do. But the key thing within that is that it comes back to the skills. So people, again, like you were saying, Cyndi, too, that people are not being exposed to these skills anymore. They're kind of dying out with the later generations. And I find it fascinating that we will put our kids into swimming lessons at the age of 2, but we never teach them how to put food into their mouths and what food they should put into their mouths, let alone how to prepare it. At no point in our upbringings are there skills that we can go and get, or that we're being given to have those skills. And some people say, oh yes, but there's home ec class. Frankly, class is now being made as an optional offering for schools to even make available, let alone an optional elective for the students. And it doesn't start happening until potentially grade 6, grade 7 as an alternative. And then when you do take it, it's one term. So you really have to ask, is that going to have an impact on their future knowledge about food and knowledge about nutrition and how to feed their bodies so that they can be healthy until they're old? It just shocks me. So that's really where my number one focus is, the kitchen school, is to be able to help that education happen at a younger and younger age. I mean, at the moment, we're still just working with adults, but the kids part of that is coming. Because I personally feel that there's no reason why we shouldn't have kitchen schools available for people, just like we have swimming pools or soccer fields or dance halls. So that's where my heart is, I guess.
And so who are the people that you're working with most these days? Are you working with younger people who are super interested in being able to do this for themselves, or are you working more with parents?
Well, it's interesting. My main number of students are generally mothers of young teenage children. We do have a few dads that are doing wonderful things for their families as well. But that being said, it's really interesting because I've now spoken in front of quite a few secondary schools and teens that are realizing that this is happening and realizing that they need these skills is growing. And so they're starting to come and ask if they can attend the adult courses, which I just find so inspiring. So I definitely do not turn them down. So we've got students from 15 up to 72 at the moment.
Right.
But for the part, it is mothers that realize after having kids that something has to change, that there has to be a better way. And with all the food intolerances and allergies and things popping up, they know that they need to get back to basics.
Yeah, and what I find, and I don't know if you're finding this, Ashley, too, is that when someone is in crisis is more likely when they will start to make changes as opposed to when they're not in crisis. Like, people seem to have to wait. And it's this society that we are in at the moment where we are about cure, we're not about prevention. And if we can get our young women and men before they have these babies and start them on this, then they're not going to have the problems that we're now seeing amongst even our 5 and 6-year-olds have depression. You know, we're finding anxiety and depression in 5 to 6-year-olds. And I don't know when we ever thought that food was not a part of that etiology for that disease, but they always dismissed it, and they're still dismissing it, which is so frustrating. And the need for kitchen coaches is like we need them. We need to have people in and teaching these young girls. So getting to those teenagers in secondary schools, that is where we need to get to. I remember when I went to school, actually, and I remember I'm from the 60s and 70s, and in the 70s, I went to an all-girls school, and we learnt to type. So this is what I remember in in secondary school being an absolute, you had to do it. We had to learn to type on a typewriter. We didn't have computers in those days. We had sewing, and you had to do sewing. We had home ec, and we had to do home ec. And then we did maths and English and geography and history. And that was my life, you know. And I think the biggest thing of all, and shorthand. I had to learn shorthand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so this is what we were being groomed. By the way, sciences were there also. And that was more in the year 11 and 12, maybe even 10. But we were being groomed to be in society where we'd be able to cope and live and do the things that we needed to do in order to be a mum. That's what it was, or a secretary. And now we, as women, there's the whole thing of we can do everything. But I sometimes wonder if the thing that is the most important, which is being a mum, has been denigrated to something that is not the most important thing. Yet I believe it is the most important thing. And when we see young teenagers just not knowing how to do this is where it's sad. So I love the thought that you're getting into these senior schools. I think it's wonderful.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more in that sense, Cyndi, is that honestly the pattern that I'm seeing in the mums is such a pattern of self-sacrifice. And it's almost like our society is rewarding that. So these moms are just doing everything for their family and everything for the extracurricular activities and everything to take care of everybody else and have a perfect looking home and keep up to all this. And they're letting themselves and their own health take the back burner. And I cannot believe the toll that that's having on that. Well, I can believe it, but because I see it all the time now. But it's just such a pervasive pattern that I see this self-sacrifice happening in moms. And for them to absolutely come to me and say, I hate cooking, my heart just sinks. Like that is my number one goal when they start working with me is, oh my gosh, we are going to change that. We have got to change that. That is just not on. How can you imagine being healthy into your old age if you literally dread your time in the kitchen and think of it as a chore? I mean, we have to do it 3 times a day. So that would wear on someone stress-wise over time. And so, yeah, as far as the biggest compliment anyone's ever given me is that, oh my gosh, I now absolutely love cooking. Thank you so much. Like, around. And they can you can see it in them. Like they're a completely different person. So yeah, being a mum is definitely then that flowing on to what the child sees. So you can imagine how the child is going to think of food if every single time mum's in the kitchen she's grumpy and you can tell she doesn't enjoy it and therefore that affects the food and et cetera, et cetera. So it is a bit of a nasty kind of downward spiral if we get into that pattern and I believe it begins with the self-sacrifice. But as soon as we can rectify that and make the spiral go in the opposite direction, oh my goodness, it just gets better and better. And every single tiny little step that they implement, they might think it's tiny, but it makes a massive difference long term if they normalize that step. So even if it's just something like drinking 500 mils of water every morning when they wake up to rehydrate the body and get the body set up for the day, to get the mind clear, and not to mention to help the elimination. But even that one little step they might think is so insignificant and so simple, but if that now becomes a normal habit for them, then they're ready to take on the next one without feeling any more that doesn't feel any different to them. It doesn't feel any harder. Yeah. So definitely being a mom, number one focus, but definitely really guarding oneself against that self-sacrifice, just taking time out for themselves as a mother.
It's interesting. I look at myself as a classic example, and I guess my generation is probably in between you and Cyndi. And I think, for me, that whole movement that has now got kids that are, late teens, we grew up very much against the grain of motherhood. And it was really a time where there was this big push for women to stand on their own 2 feet. Women started, certainly, and I'm not meaning this across the board, but I just mean around my circle, and I'm just, racking my brain now to remember what that was like. There was a competition between men and women as to who'd be able to make more money. And there was the perception that if you're the first one to leave work, then you're the least valuable. And I remember being a general manager for a company when I was 24, and I had 365 staff, and there were a lot of those people who had kids. And if those people who had kids stayed late and worked late, I remember even I valued them more. But the ones who called in all the time sick or couldn't come in or were always running late or there's always a problem, I valued them less. And I'm just running through that now that you're actually talking about all of this. And I look back even to my own life. If I did less than a 16-hour day, then I felt like I wasn't valuable. So I then had that same perception with the people that I reported to. And I don't know if... And I don't know if that's what I deliberately thought, or if that was just a perception of the companies that I worked in. Because the companies that I worked in, interestingly enough, were very female-dominated. But they were female-dominated with incredibly aggressive females. And so I don't know if that was across the board, but, even if I look at my own life, cooking was something I hated. Absolutely hated it because I didn't have time for it, didn't have an interest in it. Yet I grew up with my mum, who was always at home for us kids. She cooked for us morning, noon, and night. Right up until I left high school, my mum was still at home, with us. And I never took that on. And it was almost that whole ethos in that generation, which is obviously the generation now. Like if I'd had kids, my kids would be, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 19 or 20, I guess. And it's a really interesting period, I guess, in the evolution and the equality of women, and how that was an extreme time. And I think potentially now what we're looking at is balance, maybe. I don't know. Like like our kids got everything, were given everything in replacement of time because, we were all out working. And now maybe there's that opportunity where the interest is there and we're starting to see the impact of that mentality. And now, thanks to people like you, Ashley, and obviously the work that you've been doing your whole life, Cyndi, is now that full circle is coming around and people are starting to go, oh shit, what have we done? We need to get some education happening here because it's affecting every area of our lives. It's not just about me being ambitious or me wanting to be someone. No, actually that ripple effect has gone beyond my wildest expectations or what I could ever have thought would have occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
no,
I think that...
couldn't agree.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so we have dead silence now.
I thought Ashley was speaking. So sorry, but you know what, Carren, I couldn't agree with you more. And it has been that full circle that's come around because we've realised the error in our ways because we're seeing so many people that are not well. Whereas this wasn't happening in the 60s and 70s. Every kid was healthy. It was I shouldn't say every kid. There were some children that weren't, but compared to what's happening now, we have a rate at the moment, and this was a 2009 statistic that showed that 42% of all children born in Australia will have or do have a lifelong illness. That's outrageous. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the statistics from 2009. So I don't even know what they are now. And I would say they have grown because what we've seen between 2009 and 2016 is an exponential growth in autism, in allergies. I know in the last decade we've had a tenfold increase in allergies and food sensitivities and intolerances. So we actually know that this is happening, and I think it has gone full circle. And when we think about time on planet Earth, it's but a blink in time, and we will look back at this time and think, what the hell did we do? And the scary part, and Ashley, you might like to come in on this one. I was listening to a program last night, and it was a scientist on climate change. And so while we're talking about food in the kitchen and this and that, he's an expert on climate change, and he gives us 10 years. That's a scary thing. He gives us a decade, and he says civilization will collapse.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious. He was on national television in New Zealand, and this scientist, and whether he's, he's known as the foremost on climate change. And he says we are now growing at an exponential rate of what is happening. And so I think if we have only got 10 years left, I don't know. I'm not even going to think about it. But if we did, I know what I would. I want all the energy in the world and to be healthy, and live a life. But it was scary. It was really scary listening to him. Mm.
And you look, even if he's off by a factor of 10, that's still only 100 years away. And still for that, you got to think about your children and their children. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's about coming back to the present and just doing every single thing that we can to make our own personal worlds better, which therefore will make the whole, I guess, better. Yeah. And to take responsibility for our own health, because I think up until, for the last couple of decades anyways, we've been very happily told what to eat by food manufacturers. We've been very happily told that it's called convenience food, and that's why we eat it, is because it's convenient, when really it's just a label to make us buy it. It's not convenient at all. But yeah, and even, the fact that they say they no longer call it adult onset diabetes, type 2 now it's type 2 diabetes, because 2-year-olds are getting it. Like, they had to remove the adult onset because it's not happening anymore just in adults. I just find that absolutely shocking. So, but I think on a positive note, Cyndi, even if the world does end in 10 years, like you said.
No, I didn't say it. He said it. I don't want to say it.
No.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be amazing to absolutely live life right now as if this is the best day ever? Like, and how can I feel better? How can I have more energy to spend more quality time with my kids or my family, or and how can I really lap this up? And honestly, without health, we've got nothing, in my personal opinion. So it's definitely something to wake up to, because I mean, even like I said, they call it convenience food, but they're using these types of terminologies in many different ways, where they're calling two very different things the same name. So, I mean, just as an example, milk, when I was little, and when my dad describes when he was little, it was his job on the farm. He was one of 12, and it was his job on the farm every morning to take the little red flyer wagon full of 1-liter glass bottles of warm milk straight from the cow, and drop it off at the neighbor's doorsteps on his way to school. And I mean, the milk was still warm, and that was very different milk to what they're still calling milk today, which, I believe should be called white liquid, so people don't think it's the same thing, because it isn't the same thing as far as how the body sees it. And, they're doing it with so many things, is that the food has changed so dramatically. I mean, even you've done a whole documentary on it, Cyndi, about wheat. It's changed so dramatically. It seems unfair. The same thing, I think.
Yeah. Now, we're talking about, life and living life to the fullest. Let's just talk about your life, Ashley. So I think my first contact with you is that I met you. We did yoga for us when we did Awaken the Change Within a couple of years ago, and I remember just being fully in love with what you did with yoga. It was something that I really enjoyed, and then since then, we were swimming this morning in the Lullaby Beach. We were actually, I know your life now very much revolves around your beautiful husband Matt, kitchen coaching, yoga. And you have, I know you have a real belief in something in your life. Can you explain what it is? How you live?
Yes.
Why you live the way you live?
Well, how do I put that into words? All right, here comes a little bit of a personal story. I'm reminded, or kind of it's come up for me to tell you that when I was in engineering, my boss, I guess, wanted to put me forward a little bit to particularly teen girls, to kind of show them that it can be done. Like, engineering is not just a man's world, and women can do it as well. And I remember being put in front of this group of, I think it was about 100 grade 8 girls, and giving them this chat about engineering, and it was, it was wonderful, and I loved engineering, and you can do it. And at the end of the chat, the end of the presentation, I said to them, and this literally didn't feel like it came from me, it came from somewhere else. I said to them, but no matter what you do, you absolutely have to love what you do. And wherever those words came from, I went down and sat down as quickly as I could, because I was just welling up in tears. And I went home and I seriously questioned myself at that very moment, am I actually living that? Am I actually doing what I love doing? Because that put me in tears so instantly. And that's exactly the moment where I decided, hang on, is engineering really what I truly love doing? And is this the shape and the form that it was meant to have taken for me? So when you say, what is my philosophy in life? Where am I going with this? I can honestly, hand on heart, say to you that I will not stop until I have felt that I've positively affected the lives of at least 1 million people personally. And what I mean by that is improve their health through food, teaching skills or ways in which that they can come back to food, come back to the way nature intended these things, in such a way that works, in such a way that is not any harder. It's just different to what they've maybe grown up with in the last couple of decades, and to really get them back to those basics. So I just love seeing people's faces light up when they come to me and they say, oh my gosh, Ashley, my son just ate broccoli for the first time, or I just went to the markets for the first time. Some of these women, they've been scared to go to the farmer's market because it's so different. And then, I'll get text messages at 9 o'clock at night of someone saying that for the first time in the last 3 weeks, their father-in-law has just actually gone and done a number 2 in the toilet. Oh, wow. And they'll tell me these stories because of, things that I've helped them implement and things like that. So that's what drives me. That's what keeps me going, is hearing that people are seeing the benefits. They are feeling the effects that health is wealth. Health is the best thing ever. And a lot of people don't know how good they can feel because they've been feeling this way for the last how many years. They just think that that's normal. They think that that's as good as it's going to get. This is me feeling well. And they don't realize that they could possibly feel so much better and have so much more energy and clarity of mind and happiness in their world. So for me, it's I guess you could say that's kind of my drug. I get high on that stuff. And that's what I'm going after, is to help as many people as possible come to me with news like that. That would just be amazing.
Oh, how fabulous.
Yeah, it is. So I think we all need some sort of philosophy to live by, and that's why I teach it. But it's just nice to know why we do the things that we do and what's us on that journey. And it sounds like your upbringing was very similar to mine, except my grandfather was the gardener, not my father. My father was the chiropractor, and my mother cooked every meal, and I knew nothing else. And so you get that great start in life, and then something starts you on an amazing journey, and it's wonderful. So tell us, where are you from?
So I'm from a wonderful little town called Penticton, which is in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada. It's about 4 hours inland from Vancouver, and it's part of the Okanagan Valley, which is renowned for, it's the holiday destination for most of Canada in many ways in the summer. And again, it's one of those things where you don't know what you've got till it's gone. But that being said, it comes alive for a few months of the year, and then it becomes a sleepy little winter town through the winter. But the interesting thing, though, is it is a bit of a food bowl part of Canada where it's all orchards. I grew up with the most amazingly humongous, juicy peaches you've ever tasted in your life. And greens and cherries and apples. I will never forget my experience. The first time that I got to pick an apple straight off the tree, it was very brisk outside already, coming into fall. And Dad showed me how to polish the apple on my shirt to make it so shiny you could see a reflection in it. And in contrast to what we think of as apples today that are covered in wax, and they've been in the storage for nearly a year, and, it's just a vastly different thing. Like, the fact that we call them both apples is interesting because they're very, very different things. So I grew up in an amazing part of Canada. And I guess the way that I got to Australia is a bit of a funnier story, because I did my university in a much colder part of Canada, in Edmonton, Alberta. Spent 5 years there in sort of the average temperature of -20 throughout 6 or 8 months of the year. And when I finished my degree there, I just said, oh my goodness, I have got to get somewhere warmer for a little while. And got a job doing structural engineering in Australia, bought a one-way ticket, and much to my mother's dismay, said, well, worst case scenario, I buy a ticket home. So I've been here ever since, and it's just been amazing, honestly. Australia is just an incredible place to live, particularly if you're a foodie, particularly if you appreciate, like, literally buying the food from the farmer's hands. That's just my favorite part of a weekend morning, is to go and literally make that connection with the farmer and say, thank you, we need you. Like, please keep doing what you're doing despite all the things that are beating you down. Please. I would love to continue having access to your wonderful food until I can be growing it myself as well. It's a bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah, that's where I'm from.
No, we like long-winded answers. I love what makes people click, or what makes them do what they do and where they've come from. Especially when I hear an accent, I'm always interested. I've just been in New Orleans, and it was interesting the amount of people that said, "Oh, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from?" They all, because it means you've come from a different place, a different perspective. Why did you end up on the Sunshine Coast? What I find, and I don't know, and I think you'll both agree with me, is living on the Sunshine Coast, it seems to be a melting pot of people that do what you do, Carren, do what we do with food, do what Kimmy does. It's like everybody's come here or even spiritual life. I was listening to somebody recently. They were talking about they had real health issues, and they had spent time with a spiritual teacher who was in Malani. So, it seems to draw people to this landscape. I don't know what it is about it, but there seems to be more people here doing these amazing things and trying to make a difference than anywhere else on the planet that I've noticed. Oh, Boulder, Colorado is the other place. I find every time I go to a conference, like I've just been to the conference called ShiftCon, and ShiftCon is about shifters or people with influence, and it was all bloggers that blogged on health. And there was about 500 people there, and the speakers were people like Robin O'Brien, who started a whole she starts movements. She's an analyst, and she just seems to start movements because she doesn't like what's happening in the world. And there was J.P. Spears, the comedian that takes the mickey out of everything, but has a serious message behind it. And there was the author of Our Stolen Future. He was amazing. I just absolutely loved what he had to say. And this. Why did I start that whole conversation now? I'm just like going, okay, why did I go off on that little tangent? I know. And it was about meeting people and why they did what they did. And every single one of these people that were doing something that I spoke to, these bloggers, it was because they had a health issue themselves, or their kid had a health issue, or like they had this love for it, or they met somebody and, they were shifting other people's lives. They were influencing other people's lives. I must tell you this, Ashley, because while what you're doing, you don't realize the actual impact of it. What the impact is that we are changing corporations. People who are blogging and doing things about getting people to farmers markets and eating healthy foods the big corporations are looking at them and you to see what you are suggesting, because they know that you're on that wave that is telling them what they need in the future. It was very interesting, and that's why it's called ShiftCom. It's about shifters, people who shift corporations. And I loved it. Robin O'Brien talked about something that she was doing called Epigate. And there are so many kids with allergies and food intolerances and sensitivities, and many of them have anaphylactic reactions to not only foods but chemicals. That EpiPens, people are carrying EpiPens everywhere. And we started this thing called Epigate, where she realised how expensive these EpiPens were for these mothers that needed them all the time. And so she decided to find out how much they actually did cost, and then she shamed the company. The stocks of that big multinational drug company plummeted as she and they had to bring the price of EpiPens down. So these are shifters. These are people that, she said she's the reluctant shifter. She didn't even mean to do this. She'd rather just be behind a computer analysing. She's an analyst, you know. She'd rather be just analysing. But she's a reluctant shifter, and she's had to get out into the public eye. And, oh, my gosh, she was just awe-inspiring in what she said. And she had a real thing about glyphosate too. So she just thinks that we need to get onto our councils, and you'd think there'd be enough people here on the Sunshine Coast to start making a change in glyphosate. We can only hope that they stop using it.
It's a really good point, too, coming back to the fact that people need to be kind of forced almost nowadays to make change. And I do think that comes back to their state of overwhelm, is they've just got so much on that they can't necessarily make these changes voluntarily because they just don't have any headspace left for it. And until they're forced, you're right, it's pretty hard for most people to make significant change in the way they do things. And unfortunately, the biggest changer for people is illness now. And it's, you know, the fact that autoimmune disease has surpassed the rates of cancer and heart disease. It just blows my mind. That's been the last couple of years only that's just gone through the roof, just soared past cancer and heart disease. And autoimmune conditions are largely, and I'd say largely in a big sense, preventable through diet and lifestyle. I mean, I know that's exactly what you talk about, Cyndi, as well. And for me, I had a mini wake-up call, which was a diagnosis of celiac disease, which is still an autoimmune condition. And that was kind of the further impetus to make me go even deeper into the research and my knowledge about food, you know, using my body as an experiment. But I would wish upon everyone that they could make at least the steps in the right direction to learning the knowledge that they're going to need should ever they come across a disease. Because once you get that illness, once you get that disease, depending on what it is, it's going to be a lot harder to then all of a sudden make a complete turnabout. And just change the way you do things and kind of retrace time a little bit to try and rectify that. So, yeah, I mean, any little changes that people can make now is just so powerful for having that later effect. I wish more people would be able to die of old age, to be honest, because nowadays it's all illness related. The last time I heard somebody truly, legitimately dying from just old age, I actually don't remember the last time I heard that. Have you guys met anyone recently that's actually heard somebody dying of old age?
You're actually making me think. And my dad's 88, but he's also got a couple of little things happening with him. He gets gout, and he's losing his short-term memory just at the moment. I'm trying to make him change his diet. Actually, it ain't working, I can tell you that now. So for anybody out there who's trying to change their father's or their mother's or their sister's or their husband's diet, I can't even get my
about it.
He says to me, actually, he goes, I've been eating like this my whole life. And I said, Dad, my mother fed you all your life. It's just that she's gone now, and you are now eating. He likes Auntie Sarah. You know who Auntie Sarah is?
Do you mean the brand?
Sarah, yeah. Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee.
Oh, no.
Sarah. I get Auntie Sarah. I go, oh, my gosh, Dad. So what I've done now is I've got a lady coming in every day for 2 hours, and she cooks his dinner and his dessert, because he loves his dessert. My mum made dessert. My mum never did not make a dessert. And if there was no dessert on the table after dinner, oh my gosh, there would be a riot in our house. So my dad's got used to that. My mother did that for 50 years of their life. So, you know, this is what he now does. But, you know, I have to get that inflammation down with the gout, because that's what it is. It's inflamed. So we're working on it. But, yeah, for him to make that change, it was getting harder and harder.
Yes. And that's the kind of disappointing thing too, is that, you know, he's still drinking this so-called milk, or, you know, I just use that as an example, but, you know, he still thinks that the Sara Lee apple pie is the same apple pie that your mum used to make for him, when it's completely a different thing altogether.
Yeah, there's no comparison there, none whatsoever.
No.
Mum picked the apples from the tree. We lived near Harcourt, and Harcourt was an apple and pear growing place, and my mum would go down to Harcourt and buy massive amounts of apples and pears in the winter and make apple pie, apple crumble, baked apple, stewed apple, apple flambe. Oh my gosh, she loved it. I loved it. You know, I remember those times. I love the family eating. Every night we would sit around a table. And now this is another thing, Ashley. Are you noticing that when you come in as a kitchen coach, that you're finding instead of the families eating haphazard, they're starting to sit around the table and have conversation? Is that another thing that you're doing with your coaching?
Yeah, so I definitely like to be a little bit more holistic than what you'd say is the average cooking school or anything like that. Especially the in-home program stuff that we do with small groups is definitely the addressing the whole aspect of the kitchen. And for that, it's exactly like you said, is the family actually sitting down to eat together? And another trend that I'm seeing is unfortunately not. And I think it's because of these so-called, you know, and it's not, I shouldn't say so-called because it's very real in their lives, is the busy schedules. So oftentimes either mom or dad is not getting home till 7 o'clock at night, at which time the young kids should have already eaten a couple hours ago and they're ready for bed. So the kids are eating separate to mom and dad. Mom generally waits for dad to get home, and this pattern kind of continues. And I guess what I'm seeing the flow-on effects are is there's no one to kind of model off of. Kids learn by monkey see, monkey do. And when they just get to run amok and eat dinner kind of as they so please without an adult, you know, keeping them sitting down at the table while they eat, or showing them, you know, anything from even like, you know, chewing with their mouth closed, which seems so simple, but we're seeing a lot of, I guess, those effects. And the parents then all of a sudden realizing when the child is 12 that they don't know certain things about food or about eating or any of that, and they kind of look back and go, oh, okay, I see how that happened. So yeah, we do touch on all those kinds of aspects gently. It's mostly about some of the key skills, but the interesting thing is the kind of like you said, with the fact that people won't make change unless they're kind of forced to make change. The best part about being a coach is that I'm there as their accountability. And that was something I didn't necessarily anticipate in the beginning, but I have them coming back to me saying, oh, Ashley, I was going to go to, I went to this party and I was going to eat this and the other, but I decided that I wouldn't have that and I'd bring this instead. And they said, and I was going to send you a text and show you a photo because I was so proud of myself. And because I think if it hadn't have been, you know, me sitting there, and I've never put that pressure on them, but all of a sudden they feel accountable to me. And that's been,
great.
A really cool side effect is I'm maybe forcing them like a loving mother would force them to just to help them make that change before it's critically necessary health-wise. And that's I think that feels pretty good when they send me this text that they're so proud of, and I just love receiving them. Love receiving them.
I think that's the key, though, because when you don't know what to do, you don't know what else to do. And I think a lot of people, they don't know what they don't know. And it's like you guys have, you know, we've kind of come full circle now that we're towards the end of the podcast. I think it's almost as if people knew better, they would probably do better.
Yes.
But they don't know. And having somebody like you, Ashley, to talk them through the process and be there when they've got questions, but also help them celebrate. I think there's nothing better. There's absolutely nothing better. So how can our listeners reach out to you? How can they find you if they want to know more about you?
Yes, so great question. So for any listeners that are local on the Sunshine Coast, they can definitely come to Kitchen School. At the moment, we are located here only at the moment, but that hopefully will be changing soon, spreading out a bit. So for locals, we can do that. And for everyone else, we've tried to make everything that I do in Kitchen School and as a kitchen coach available. And it is growing, the offerings. But the first protocol is what we call the Overwhelm Crusher. And that is an online program, very simple, very straightforward. It's a 2-week process. And it's exactly that, to crush the overwhelm so that they can kind of see through the clouds and then start to figure out a plan moving forward. And they're like I said, they're very simple steps to implement, but it can be very life-changing when implemented. So that, I say, would be the first protocol for someone who's just looking to kind of dip their toe in and have a little try and see how much better they can feel. Because like you said, Carren, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So that's just overwhelmcrusher.com. We'll take you to that specific online product. And I guess as well for your listeners, we can do a 25% off promo code.
Wow.
Yeah. So the promo code is Crusher Launch. So Crusher, CRUSHER, Launch, LAUNCH. We'll get them.
I'm just going to look that up right now. So Overwhelm.
Thank you for doing that promotion for us.
Yeah, no, not a problem. My pleasure. I want to crush the overwhelm. Honestly, it's not a program we put up there to, make money from. It's like, this is the first protocol. We have to get people to see through the clouds, and then they can take the next step. And look, the next step from there, there's a few other options from that point. You can look up for more information on coach.com.au. And that's probably the next protocol, is to take it from there. Let the learnings grow from that. But definitely, crush that overwhelm. There's no sense, there's nothing productive that can come from a state of overwhelm, I'll tell you that.
What was the website again?
So overwhelmcrusher.com will get you to that product.
Groovy.
.com. Yeah.
I went ahead and put a .au and it didn't really work out for me. So cool. Oh, amazing. That looks fabulous. That looks fabulous. Oh, and fab. So all of our listeners can meet you there and get a feel for who you are and what you've got to offer. Oh, look at you, you gorgeous thing. Oh my goodness.
I'm going to it. I haven't seen it.
I know.
No, I'm going to go.
I love it.
I love how we can just go and have a look.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Because I'm still new to the whole video thing. I'm very much an in-person kind of person. But honestly, the number of people that I want to touch with this and hopefully help improve the lives of, I've realized I've had to get that onto video. So we are in the process of getting a lot more of the Kitchen School learnings on video as well. That we'll be launching a lot of that in the new year. But definitely, as a first protocol, this alone can be a game changer. We've had quite a few feedback on that so far. Is that, oh my goodness, they can't believe, in some ways, how simple it is, but also just how completely life-changing it can be to get these things sorted as a foundational, let's get the foundation set up.
Amazing. Well, Ashley, this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know that it was a bit of a stretch for you, so thank you for fitting us in. I really, really, all really appreciate your sharing your wisdom, your philosophy, and I guess your incredible passion to really start to wake people up to bringing that responsibility back to the kitchen, back to the bench. And I really admire your tenacity and your ferocious energy to make this happen. I love it. I think it's awesome. So
thank you, Carren. That means a lot. And yes, like I said, I'm not stopping anytime soon. This is just too exciting. And again, coming back to the whole idea of do what you love. This is exactly like, I wake up every morning and I've never once called it work. It's just I feel so grateful and privileged to be able to help people in this way. And I think for that reason alone, I'll hopefully never run out of steam, although some days it's pretty full on. But yes, thank you. I appreciate that. It's just been a pleasure to be on here with you both. And too bad we couldn't speak with Kimmy, but maybe next time. I'm sure she's in a little bit of overwhelm. I might have to go help her out.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's been fabulous. So thank you from the bottom of our bottoms.
Thank you, and Cyndi, thank you so much.
I'm just shaking my head at Carren at the moment.
That's so funny. We go there too. We talk a lot about that anyways.
Oh no, now we're on to poop. Are we on to we cannot escape it. Not for one podcast, we cannot escape poop. Here we go. Right, you are. Okay, well, now we're going to have to get you back, and we'll get you back on when we speak to Damien Christoph, because he's coming up soon too. So that's going to be pretty funny. I love it. All right, you guys. What's that?
He will talk about poop.
Oh, nothing but poop. The whole poop and nothing but the poop.
Yes. There's a lot of places we can go with that. Yeah, all good.
Oh, dear, oh, dear. All right. Well, tune in next time, all of our listeners, to know all about poop. So join us here on Up for a Chat, where nothing is left sacred. Go to our Facebook page, allthews.facebook.com/Up for a Chat, or you can also reach out to us at allthews.thewellnesscouch.com/Up for a Chat. Leave us your comments, leave us your questions and your messages. And we also want to just encourage you guys, if you're thinking about Christmas presents and New Year gifts, make sure that you head on over to awakenthechangewithin.com, where you're going to find all of the information that you need to be able to join Kim, Cyndi, and myself in New Zealand in 2017 and also in Africa for 2018. So that's a super, super exciting trip. We've only got about 3 spaces left for New Zealand, and I think we've got 6 spaces left for Africa. So don't hold back. We've got an amazing group of people joining us on these treks where you get to spend some up close and personal time with each of us. So all the W's.awakenthechangewithin.com. Now join us here next week on Up for a Chat and become part of the ripple effect that's changing the world. And we're going to poop right alongside you as we all enjoy the ride. See you next week, everyone.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.